Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's May 25th, 2014, and this week we're going to do a lesson on developing fingerboard mobility. Now, this week's question was sent in from Robert K. He's out in South Jordan, Utah, and he wrote in with this email. I've just finished memorizing all my natural minor scale patterns through all 5 shapes on the neck. Your scale handouts were a big help. Now I'm trying to understand how to use the scale shapes in solos and play them in a more mobile way. One of my favorite players is George Lynch, and he uses scales this way. He's roaming all over the neck with different combinations of the scale shapes. How can I practice this? From Robert K. in South Jordan, Utah, USA. Well, hey, thanks for writing in, Robert. You know, players like George Lynch and many other great guitarists like him have no doubt taken the time to learn how to play scales and licks in several different fingerboard positions. And early on, these top players will study several ways to cover multiple octaves across fingering positions to attain a fantastic range on the neck, you know, whether they're playing melodies or whether they're doing a solo. And in this lesson, I'll discuss how to not only build multiple position range on the guitar, but I'll also demonstrate a couple of licks that will hopefully motivate you to start applying your own original scale pattern combinations for helping you to break away from the traditional box-shaped scales and get you to start roaming the neck a little bit more. Well, when it comes to learning scale patterns, our initial exposure to the fingerboard shapes will wind up being based upon in-position layouts, resembling something like the layout we might have with a 6-string root C minor scale. Pretty much all right there in the 8th position, and it sits in a block or box shape on the neck. Now, although learning this traditional style of in-position scale pattern is great for getting started in the world of scales on the neck, and we mostly will always, train ourselves initially with those kinds of shapes, we obviously need to expand upon the idea so that our position range and our mobility can grow to eventually allow us to become much more flexible with scale tones, in a wider range on the fingerboard. The traditional in-position patterns are generally just really too narrow, and one way to expand them is to stretch the scale tones across several fretboard positions. In my next example, I've stretched the C minor scale pattern from the 5th position, starting with the small finger, the baby finger there, at the 8th fret, and we're going to move all the way across to the 1st position on the 2nd string C. So how this is going to work is we're going to come from that 8th fret, 6th string, then we're going to jump, position shift, and jump, position shift again, finally resolving up there on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. What's really important to pay particular attention to, of course, is the fingering, especially on those jumps. You want to make sure you got the right fingering on the jump. And, this shape here, we're traveling with it down towards the guitar's headstock, but, using the same concept can be applied up the neck toward the body of the guitar as well. So next up, here's an example of how we could shift 5th string root C minor scale from the 3rd position all the way up to the 9th position. And what's interesting with this scale formation is how we're executing the position shifts this time. We're going to do it by way of slides, and they're all going to be applied by way of the fretting hand's small pinky finger there. So we're going to come along here, the neck, we're going to have the 3rd, 5th, and 6th frets, and then we're going to slide forward. We're going to carry on the 4th string and do another slide. Carry on again on the 3rd string, another slide. And then we're going to head over to the 2nd string to wrap the scale up, playing frets 9 and then 11 and then 13 to that high C. So that's a brand new scale layout for you. It's a really efficient way of changing positions and being very mobile on the neck, isn't it? So those kinds of position shifts are very good. Those are just a couple of ways, though. You can see how easy it is to interlock patterns, traveling either to the body of the guitar or down to the headstock, as that first example did. But, it's not all that hard to really create these extended out-of-position scales. And if you practice creating, perhaps, maybe even just one a day, when you feel motivated to build this kind of stuff, I'm sure that over the course of a few weeks, you're going to have a number of effective patterns like this. But before I wrap up the lesson, I wanted to demonstrate a couple of scale runs that will actually utilize this very idea. The first scale run I have for you is an ascending run, and it begins from the 5th string 3rd fret C once again, that same C that we had from the previous exercise, and it's going to head up all along the neck to the 11th position here. I'm going to have some ideas going on up there. And basically I'm just going to run through it for you, give you an idea how it sounds. So this is it played slower. There's a lot of ground that we covered there. I'll play it again. So that ending has a bit of a Hendrixy feel to it. Here it is one more time. These kind of ideas, when you mess around with them, they have a really interesting feel, and they allow you to incorporate quite a few phrasing devices. We had some hammer-ons and pull-offs there. We, of course, had all those slides. When we start off there, we're in one position here at the 3rd fret area of the neck. And you can see we're sort of going more into the central part of the neck. So this is lower end of the neck, central part of the neck. And then when we're done there, and we're way up on the fretboard here into the 11th position. So it really gives you a great chance to get a really good handle on the whole span of the neck. It's a very cool sound when you move it around. The next example I have, though, is going to be a descending. That was more of an ascending line. The next one's going to be descending, and it's going to start from the 2nd guitar string up at 11th position there. And it's going to head down the fingerboard all the way to the 3rd position. So we're going to carry along in a descending fashion. And, once again, with all these melodic line examples, be sure to spend an appropriate amount of time pre-planning your fingering. How are you going to go across the guitar neck? It's going to be very valuable, and it's not going to be the same person to person. Some people are going to have, one approach with it, and other people are going to have a different one. But, just create the easiest and the most economical fretting hand fingerings for the lines as possible, and you're going to wind up working out some really good ones for yourself. Just take the time to do it, basically. So in my final melodic example, we're going to be descending, like I mentioned, and we're going to go down the neck like this. There's some backward slide heading down the neck like that. Just one more time. But with the greater range that we have, when we're traveling along the neck in this manner and we're redoing our scales so that we're going across the neck, it's really going to open up quite a few interesting areas for your playing and get you away from that real narrow approach of being in just one single position. Well, as you've seen from the examples I've demonstrated in this lesson, the study of scale patterns from their standard in-position shapes is only the beginning. Once the scale patterns are broken away from their box shapes and connected in different combinations, the entire guitar neck starts to open up, and you'll start to feel much easier about roaming all over the neck and playing the scales in different directions, sometimes the opposite directions as to how you'd originally studied the scale shapes. So practice playing the scales in all these different ways, and most of all, be sure to practice making good riffs you can use in your improvisations and, of course, when you're composing new songs. Anyway, that's about all the time I have for today. As always, thanks for watching. Have yourself a great week, and I'll catch up with you next time. Bye for now.